Let's talk about the single greatest strategic failure in all of marketing. It's something called the utility illusion. It's this belief that people buy your product for its features, when really the neurological truth is that humans buy the transformation, who they become after they use it. For years, we've been stuck in this trap, thinking that to win, all we need is a better tool, right? More functions, a longer feature list, but that's not the game anymore. So how did we get so obsessed with the tool instead of the transformation? And more importantly, what's the real engine that actually drives growth? Let's break it all down.
This quote right here, it just cuts straight to the bone. We've all seen this play out. Maybe you're even living it right now. So many brilliant founders and marketing teams are completely locked in these feature wars. They get obsessed with having more integrations, fancier AI, a slicker interface than the next guy. They'll spend a fortune building the most powerful hammer in the world, only to find out the market never even wanted a hammer. They just wanted the nail in the wall so they could hang their picture. Sound familiar? We've all been there, chasing feature parity when we should have been chasing the outcome. And that's the disconnect we're going to fix today.
So just look at this comparison. On the left, you've got the old way, the utility illusion. You keep adding more features, thinking you're adding value. But what you're really doing is adding noise. The customer gets overwhelmed, they can't figure it out, and what happens? They churn, because they never got the result they were hoping for. Now, look at the right. This is the new model. Results-based offers aren't about adding more stuff, they're about subtracting friction. This whole approach is about delivering something way more valuable than features. It's about delivering certainty. It gives the customer a sense of relief, and that, in turn, leads to insane levels of retention. It's a huge shift from selling a complicated tool to guaranteeing a simple, life-changing outcome.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for this whole thing. First, we're going to really dig into the problem with the great utility illusion. Then we'll introduce the solution, the outcome certainty engine. After that, we'll get into the deep psychology of why this works so well, which is all about selling the future self. Then we'll get practical with a blueprint for architecting the outcome. And finally, we'll see why this is absolutely the future with the transformation imperative.
All right, let's jump into section 1, the great utility illusion. We're going to unpack this kind of crazy idea that focusing on your amazing product might paradoxically be the very thing that's killing your sales.
So here it is, the big paradox. The more you talk about your tool, the less you actually sell. Why? It's simple. You're not building a brand, you're building a learning curve. Every single time you explain a new feature, you're just giving your customer another mental task, another thing they have to learn and manage. You're creating friction. And let's be honest, the human brain isn't looking for another tool to master. It's desperately searching for relief. It wants to get from its current state of pain to a future state of power with the absolute least amount of effort. Your feature list, that's just a map of all the work they have to do. The result is the destination they actually want to get to.
And look, this isn't just a theory. It's a documented market shift. I call it the software fatigue crisis. By 2024, the average company was juggling hundreds of different software tools. The promise was always more productivity, but the reality? It was just chaos. People were spending more time trying to manage their tools than they were doing their actual jobs. The very software that was supposed to help had become the main obstacle. We literally hit a point of human cognitive overload, where the tool wasn't the solution anymore, it was the problem. Churn rates went through the roof, not because the software was buggy, but because users were just drowning in complexity and never got the outcome they were promised.
And so, the market did what it always does, it corrected. We shifted away from just selling licenses and counting seats. We moved into an era of outcome-based scaling. Smart investors, they stopped asking about those vanity metrics. They started asking the one killer question. What's your net revenue retention? They finally realized that a tool nobody uses effectively is like a ghost in the machine. It's a liability, not an asset. The data became undeniable. That initial sale is really just the down payment. The real sustainable value is in guaranteeing the transformation that happens after the sale.
So, if that old model is so broken, what's the fix? Well, that brings us to section 2, the outcome certainty engine. This is the solution. This is the core mechanism you need to sell a guaranteed transformation.
So what exactly is it? An outcome certainty engine is an architecture. It's not some little marketing tactic or a single feature. No, it is a complete system designed from the ground up with one purpose: to guarantee a customer's transformation. Its goal is not to give them access to a tool, but to make sure that customer successfully reaches their desired future state. Think of it like this. You're not selling a car, you're selling the guaranteed arrival at a dream destination. The car is just the invisible machine that gets them there.
We can break this whole engine down into 3 really critical stages, or what I like to call gates. Step 1 is the gap definition, also known as the pain gate. This is where you get super brutally specific about the customer's current pain and you contrast it with where they want to be. Step 2 is the mechanism, the invisible gate. Now this is your product, but you position it as the effortless, almost magical how that bridges that gap. Your customer doesn't need to know how the engine works, they just need to trust the bridge. And finally, step 3 is the promise state, the victory gate. This is that tangible, emotional, financial after state that the customer is actually buying.
Now to power this engine, you need a totally new kind of fuel. We have to get away from vanity metrics like clicks and engagement. The new non-negotiable KPI is success velocity. What's your success velocity? Basically, how fast does a new user achieve a meaningful win? For a project management tool, that micro win might be creating their first task. For accounting software, it's sending their first invoice. If that key milestone doesn't happen within, say, the first 10 minutes, your system has to flag it as a failure to transform. Your entire company dashboard needs to be rebuilt around this one metric because it's the only real leading indicator of retention and long-term value.
Okay, now for section 3. This is where we go from mechanics to magic. We are going to dive deep into the psychology of selling the future self. Why is this approach so ridiculously effective on the human brain? The first big principle at play here is a really powerful cognitive bias called the endowment effect. And put simply, it just means we are biologically wired to place a much higher value on things we feel we already own. It's why a free trial can kind of work. But we're going to take this principle and weaponize it. We're not just letting them try a tool. We are engineering an experience where they feel they already possess a better future. We're building a psychological bridge that, in their mind, they've already crossed.
So how do you actually do this? First, you have to paint that after state, that promised land, in incredibly vivid, granular detail. Use case studies, data, testimonials, whatever it takes to make it feel real and tangible. This lets the user mentally endow themselves with that future success. They start to feel like they already have it. So what's the result of that? Well, now saying no to your offer isn't just rejecting a product anymore. It becomes a real psychological loss. You're activating loss aversion, which is one of the most powerful motivators in human behavior. You're not really selling anymore. You're just preventing them from losing the awesome future they just discovered.
The second psychological lever here is cognitive ease. Look at this column on the left, a feature list. Reading that forces the brain into what psychologists call System 2 thinking. That's the slow, deliberate, energy-draining part of your brain you use for math problems. It's hard work. Now look at the right, a single clear result. This taps into System 1, the fast, intuitive, gut-feeling part of our brain that makes almost all of our decisions. By focusing on the transformation, you just remove all that mental work. You make the decision to buy feel easy, safe, and just right. You're not asking them to do calculus, you're just asking if they want to arrive at their destination.
Okay, this all brings us to section 4, architecting the outcome. We've talked about the what and the why, so now let's get down to the how. This is the actual blueprint you can use to build this engine for yourself.
There are 4 core steps here. First, you have to architect the outcome-first narrative. This means your website, your ads, your sales calls, everything stops talking about your product and starts talking exclusively about the new life your customer is going to lead. Second, you engineer the magic mechanism. This is all about product design. Your tool has to become this silent partner that does all the heavy lifting while making the user feel like a genius. Third, automate the proof loop. You have to systematically capture every customer win, every milestone, and then broadcast those wins as social proof and case studies. You let the results do the selling for you. And finally, like we discussed, you relentlessly measure transformation velocity. That becomes the North Star for your entire company.
When you do this, you completely reframe your identity. You are not a vendor of software. You're not just selling licenses or seats. No, you are an architect of potential. Your job is to design and build a system that makes success the only logical and possible outcome for your customers. And let me tell you, that's a far more valuable role to play in the market, and it's infinitely more defensible than just having one extra feature.
And that brings us to our final section, the transformation imperative. This is about understanding that this whole framework isn't just some clever tactic, it's the new, unwritten law of market dominance.
You see, sustainable, explosive growth, it's not a fluke. It's not an accident. It is a learned skill. Market leadership today is the direct result of understanding this fundamental shift and consciously building a model around transformation, not utility. The companies that learn this lesson are the ones that will dominate the next decade. The ones that don't, they're going to be commoditized into total irrelevance. So, as we wrap all this up, I want to leave you with this one single question. I want you to go look at your website, your sales deck, your product onboarding, every single touch point, and ask yourself, are you selling a tool or are you selling a transformation? Because the answer to that question will literally predict the entire future of your business.
And let's end on this one final principle. The old model was all about pushing people through a funnel. The new model is about pulling them toward value. When you sell a guaranteed transformation, you stop being just another choice in your really crowded market. You become a necessity. You become the only logical option because you're not just offering a tool, you're offering certainty. And in a world filled with infinite noise and fatigue, certainty is the ultimate value, and it's a much better deal than your customers could have ever expected.